Hello, my name is Rabbi Hanan Schlesinger. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Masa'a in the book of Numbers. The subject I'll be talking about related to the Parsha is this: shall the sword devour forever? The war that presently engulfs us is not of our own choosing. It was forced upon us against our will. In this unredeemed world in which we live, sometimes violence must be met by violence. Pressed to the wall as we are, we will respond with the force and the iron resolve necessary to defend ourselves in the best possible fashion. This is not the first time that we've been compelled to take upon ourselves the deadly tools of war. For the better part of a century, we have held the sickle in one hand and the sword in the other hand. And the question must be asked: what is this doing to our souls on the personal level? And what is this doing to the soul of Judaism? My mind brings me back to a tense Saturday night during the latter part of 1982. Rabbi Yehuda Amital, may his memory be a blessing, gathered together all the students of Yeshivat Har Etzion to make a public statement, to talk about his great trepidation with the increasing militarism of Israeli society. It was the aftermath of the war in Lebanon. Thousands of Israeli troops were still on Lebanese soil, and many of the yeshiva students had just returned from battle. And he told us with great emotion and with great sorrow that it appeared to him that Judaism, as lived and experienced by rabbis and laymen in the Holy Land, was losing its compassion, was losing its foundational aspiration for reconciliation and for peace. In the charged atmosphere of the question and answer period that followed, it became clear that the interpretation of a central passage in this week's Torah portion was at the heart of Rav Amital's message and was at the heart of his pain. I'm going to read the verses from the book of Numbers, chapter 35, verses 52 to 56. When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you shall dispossess all the inhabitants of the land, and you shall take possession of the land and settle it. But if you do not dispossess the inhabitants of the land, those whom you allow to remain shall be stings in your eyes and thorns in your sides. End quote. And I remember indignant students of the rabbi passionately argued that waging war against the Arabs of the land, whether in Beirut or in Hebron, is what God has commanded us. We must be relentless in our battle to claim every inch of the land as our own. No less an authority than the Ramban Nachmanides, these students mentioned, one of the greatest Jewish thinkers of all times. He lived in the 13th century in Spain. They invoked his name and his writings to justify their opposition to the message of my beloved teacher, Rav Yehuda Amital. And I'm going to quote from the central passage in the Ramban's commentary on Maimonides' Book of Commandments, at the end where he has his addendum to positive commandments. The quote goes like this: "We must not leave the land in the hands of any other nation at any time. We are commanded to conquer the land and settle it. Behold, we've been commanded to conquer the land throughout the generations." And Rabbi Amital answered, he responded, that Zionism, our Zionism, was never based on the opinion of the Ramban Nachmanides, the one we just quoted. Why? Because there are those who disagree. Among others, it appears that the Rambam, Maimonides, the predecessor of Nachmanides, disagreed. Maimonides apparently held, and a number of other commentators, that the verse quoted from this week's Parsha about dispossessing all the inhabitants of the land, that applied way back then when the Israelite tribes, I quote, crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan, end quote. It applied under the leadership of Joshua, and the ensuing generations, but it does not apply today. We, who have returned to the land, to our homeland, after 2,000 years of exile, are not commanded to live by the sword. On the contrary, said Rav Amital, and I remember this very, very clearly, he quoted from the book of Proverbs, that the fundamental way of the Torah is, I quote, Darchea darchei noam v'chol notivotea shalom. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are paths of peace. Fast forward. I don't know how much has changed since 1982. My beloved teacher has passed away, and by the way, this week is his yortzeit, the anniversary of his passing. And it's now fallen to his students to defend the honor of the Torah, to continue to put forth a vision of Torah and of Zionism that is full of love not only of the land of Israel, but full as well of love of all human beings. We will pursue Hamas until they are subdued. We'll safeguard our beloved state of Israel and its precious citizens. Be sure of that. At the same time, however, we must be vigilant against the growth of hatred and indifference to the loss of human life in order to safeguard our Torah and our humanity. Let not the Torah's insight that all human beings are created in the divine image and her vision of universal brotherhood and peace, let them not become further casualties of the terrible wars that have been forced upon us, cruelly forced upon us. That was one of my teacher's greatest fears, and mine as well. Thank you.